Hello everyone. Like Winnie said, my name is Mario. I've been with USA Fit for quite some time. I've been doing things from running to assistant coaching to coaching, and then the ATP coaching too as well. I do have a little side business I do. It's called the Running Medic. I help runners from beginners to advanced, getting them to the top performance, focusing mostly on their running mechanics and stuff like that, which helps with preventing injuries, things of that sort. But I'm here today to talk to you about running in the heat, okay? So today, how many felt it was pretty tough? Just for what, 1 mile, 2 miles, right? Felt hot, right? Really hot. Well, most of us that are in this area, we know that Houston temperature, Houston weather is unforgiving, especially during July into August, even up until what, October sometimes. But it's important to know how to train in the heat, okay? So most people think that, yeah, Texas is a dry desert when they're not from Texas, right? They think we ride on horses and cows and stuff like that. Well, that's not true. That's all movie stuff. It tends to be pretty humid in most of Texas. Besides, western Texas, that's your drier area. But most of Texas tends to be hot and humid. The other thing is that if you do not prepare yourself to train in the heat, you can run into certain situations called heat injuries. Heat injuries is basically, like the title says, is injuries caused by the heat. And when you have a high heat index, which I'll go into a little bit later, it puts you at a higher risk for these heat injuries. So there are 3 types of heat injuries. One starts off with a cramp. How many people here have had cramps when they run? All right, a couple of you, right? So most people will get it in their calves. That's like the most common, but they can get into the thighs and even to the buttocks too as well. What that is basically because of the heat, because you're sweating a lot, you're losing a lot of water and a lot of electrolytes. Electrolytes are very important for the muscles to function, to allow you to run. Once you lose a certain amount of electrolytes, your muscles can't react like it's supposed to, so it seizes up, and what ends up happening is basically you stop, grab your leg, you try to work it out. Sometimes people fall over because the cramp is so intense. So that's the first stage of heat injuries. The next one is called heat exhaustion. Heat exhaustion is basically you're running in this type of weather that you feel right now. You're sweating. I see all you guys look like you've been swimming. So you're sweating so much because your core body is so hot that you try to cool off. What you will notice with heat exhaustion is that you're sweating a lot. You may feel your pulse. It feels kind of weak, but it's fast. You touch your skin, it feels cool, but it's your skin's losing like its color. It's kind of pale color. And that's because your body's being stressed to a point where it's trying to maintain that core temperature at an acceptable level, but it's working hard to do that, okay? So that's heat exhaustion. And you may also experience like some mild headache, maybe you feel a little nauseous, and you just feel really crappy, okay? The final stage of heat injuries is called heat stroke. This is a severe case of heat injuries. Heat stroke is a medical emergency, okay? You don't want to ever get to this point because that means your body system is not able to cool itself down and you're going to have an internal core temperature that's so hot that it's messing up all kinds of things, the brains, kidneys, everything. Everything's just dysfunctioning. The symptoms of heat stroke is basically you touch the skin, it's hot. You touch the skin, it's dry. The person's confused. They may not make any sense. They're throwing up. They're looking horrible. With these people, you need to call 911, get them to a cool, cold area, such as a shady area, fan them down, put cold packs on the neck, groin, things of that sort, to cool them down as much as you can until you can get medical emergency over to them to help them out, okay? So I just talked a little briefly about how to treat, heat injuries. What I mentioned about cooling people off, that's basically for any of the heat injuries, minus the cramps. The cramps, like I said, has to do with the electrolytes. So the way to treat your cramps is basically you need to replace the electrolytes. Gatorade, Gatorade, you got Powerade, you got all those types of electrolyte drinks that you can take. So you need to supplement that to replenish the electrolytes to help the muscle not cramp up, okay? With heat exhaustion, cool, cold place, packs on the neck, growing, you may want to slow down your run. You may even want to shorten your training and basically stop so you don't get into that next level with the heat stroke, okay? Now, the next thing we need to talk about to beat the heat and to prevent the heat injuries is hydration, okay? We can go into hydration into super depth, but I made it kind of easy where if you want, there's like a QR code, gives you a web page, and it goes into ways that you can beat the heat with hydration. But in general, with hydration, you want to hydrate before, during, after, and even on your days off, okay? Because if you don't hydrate correctly, then you're gonna run yourself into a situation running in this heat, getting those heat injuries, or just having really crappy training, okay? So in general, recommendation is to drink between 4 ounces to 8 ounces of water an hour to 30 minutes before your run. Now I know for myself, I can't do that because if I do, I'm gonna end up going to the bathroom 15 minutes, or I may need to go to the bathroom right before my run. And I don't like to be in that situation. So it's very individualized of how much water you should drink before your run. So you kind of play with that. You know, try 2 ounces, 4 ounces, 8 ounces, see what works for you, okay? Now during your run, you wanna be drinking throughout your run. Even if you're running 30 minutes, you still wanna be sipping on your water, okay? If you're running 45 minutes or more, you want to throw a little bit of electrolytes into that too as well. Now, how much should you be drinking? Again, it's very individualized of how much you should be drinking. Some people may need more, some people may need less. It just depends on what we call your sweat rate, okay? The general rule though is that you just drink a little bit at a time. What I don't recommend is this method that you may hear some runners say or some coaches say is drink to thirst. That's not a good idea. Reason why is because when you drink to thirst, your body is already dehydrated. Okay, and it's dehydrated enough to the point where your body's telling your mind, I need to drink. That is a late sign of dehydration. If you drink to thirst, you're behind the curve, you're never gonna catch up, and you're gonna basically crap out in your training or in your run, or you may run into those heat injuries, okay? So I don't recommend to drink to thirst. Just drink a little bit at a time, kind of figure out what's the best method for you, but you do want to be drinking throughout your run. Finally, after your run, once you're done running, you want to be drinking, replaced with electrolytes too as well, and then throughout the day, you want to drink additional water and electrolytes to kind of replenish everything you lost. If you want to go a little bit more specific of how much you should be drinking after your run or during your run, there's something that you can do where you measure your weight before your run and then after your run. When you measure weight before your run, you want to be basically naked, weigh yourself if you can, and then after your run, when you get home, you want to be naked too as well and weigh yourself. Reason for that is because if you run and you're sweating like you guys are and you weigh yourself afterwards, your clothes are going to collect all that extra water and it's going to give you a false number, okay? Again, that webpage shows you how to go through the calculations step by step of getting that weight loss ratio and how much you should be drinking, okay? So if you're interested, go ahead and scan that in. The other thing is getting used to the temperature, right? Getting used to running in the hot weather like this. It's called acclimation, okay? You need to do this very carefully and slowly. So if you never ran in weather like this, where it's hot and humid, you need to run 30 to 50% of your original training. So let's say you're used to running 10 miles a day at a high intensity. Well, if you're coming to a new environment like this, where it's hot and humid, you need to decrease it by 30 to 50%. So it'd be like 5 miles at an easy pace. You don't want to be trying to do your speed work during acclimating to your new environment, especially when it's hot and humid, because otherwise you're going to find yourself in trouble and getting into those heat injuries that I mentioned, okay? And it takes about 10 to 14 days to actually get your body used to this type of weather. If you're really highly trained, it could be a little bit less. If you're not as trained, then it may take a little bit more time. But again, it's individualized, but the main thing is take it slow, take it gradual, and make sure you do it correctly to prevent injuries. That's the main thing. Now, there are ways to kind of beat the heat, as in to the time of training. You have ideally morning and evening. There are pros and cons to both of those, and I'll go over those right now. So training in the morning is ideal because the air quality tends to be better, right? There's not a lot of traffic going on overnight, so the air quality is better. The other thing too, the temperature is lower. The downfall of training in the morning, is that you've been sleeping all night, your body's not been moving around, so you may need a longer warm-up, okay, to get into a certain decision to be able to train very well, okay? So your warm-up's a lot longer. The other thing too is that it tends to be a lot more humid in the morning than later in the day and in the evening, okay? Now, training in the evening, again, pros and cons to those. Training in the evening tends to be less humid, but it still tends to be warmer than in the morning. The other thing is that you've been up, moving around, doing work, so your body's a lot more warmed up, so your warm-up session may be less. The cons to it is that, the air quality may not be as great. And why I keep on talking about the air quality, some people may have asthma, some people may have some lung issues, and there's something called ozone that is released in the air or concentrates in the air during the day and the evening that people may notice that it's harder to breathe. So that's why they may want to work out in the morning versus in the evening, okay? So that's the difference between the morning and nighttime. Now, during midday, it's not recommended because you got both the temperature and the humidity is still at a position where the heat index, which we'll go into a little bit later, is still high, and it's gonna make you really, really hot, even more so than what you feel like this morning, okay? So midday is not ideal. All right, so I've been throwing out this term, heat index. Let's talk about this. So the heat index is a combination of temperature and humidity, okay? When we combine those two values, we get a heat index. And a heat index is basically what they call the feel-like temperature. So I'm pretty sure you heard on the news when they say, oh, the temperature is 92 degrees with a humidity of X amount. So the feel-like temperature is like 10, 15 degrees higher than what the actual temperature is. So that's what the heat index is. So you can go online to find like charts, and what you would do is you would look at the weather. You will look on the left side of the chart. It will tell you the temperature. You'll go across to the right, and you look on the top for the humidity, and you'll go straight down, and it'll intersect on one point of the chart. And that will give you the feel-like temperature or the heat index. Now with these charts, if you use them, you'll see them that they're kind of color-coded. Some will be yellow for caution, orange for like extreme caution, red for danger, and then black for like extreme danger. And what that basically means is that if you train outside during any of those color-coded things, it tells you what your risk is for heat injuries, okay? So yellow, yeah, you have some risks, but it's not as bad, so you can still train. You can still do your speed work, you can still train hard, just use caution, hydrate, electrolytes, things of that sort. If you go into the next section, which on my chart is orange, it means that you have extreme caution. You may want to slow it down a little bit. You can still train, you can still do speed work, but just be aware that you may experiencing some heat injuries, and you may want to just be a little more careful. The next one I have on my chart is red. That one, not so much really recommended to train, but if you absolutely need to train, you want to shorten your training duration and the intensity. So that means no speed work, nice easy run. Instead of doing 10 miles, maybe 4 miles, 5 miles, you don't want to do your full 10 miles, because running in that type of heat index, you're going to feel like you ran 10 miles just by running the 5 miles, okay? And you want to protect yourself. And lastly, on my chart, there's like the black color. You don't want to do any kind of training outside. You're just at risk for severe injuries. If anything, train inside, treadmills, things of that sort, okay? All right, so that's basically all that you can do for the most part to protect yourself while running in the heat. Again, key things is be aware of what heat injuries are, know the signs and symptoms, know how to protect yourself if you do experience those signs and symptoms, and what to do in an emergency, okay? The other thing is hydration is important before, during, and after, and during your breaks, during your training too as well, okay? Acclimating to hot weather, humid weather is very important. Do it gradually, slowly, and work your way up between 10 to 14 days. And then weighing yourself before and after is a good way to determine how much water you lost to replace it during and after your training, okay? And then lastly, how to use the heat index. Heat index is a very important tool in order to protect yourself and make sure that you're safe while you're training. One thing with this group, we do use the heat index, so when they do call you or they do message you saying, hey, training's been canceled, it's not because we don't want to coach you or train you, it's because the heat index is too high and the risk of anybody getting injured is higher, and we don't want anybody getting hurt while they're training, okay? Safety is the key thing with all running groups or with anybody who's running, okay? Thank you for listening, and you guys take care, all right?